In this video, we're going to look at how we can export contacts from a Contactzilla address book into Microsoft 365. This will allow contacts in the address book to be available within the Outlook contacts for your staff members. So with an existing address book, we want to come across to export. The first thing you're going to want to do is ensure that the Microsoft 365 Premium Exporter is enabled. You can drop support at contactzilla.com a line and we'll enable this on your account for you. There is a cost associated with this, and when it comes to converting to a paid account, we will give you a price for this alongside your device connections. So with the exporter enabled, if you click into it, you'll see that by default there's no exports available, and we're just currently in an address book with 5 contacts. The first thing we need to do is make sure that we have the authentication set up. In order to do that, what we need to do is come across to Team Settings, OIDC, and then we need to pick the Microsoft default connector here and View Connections. What we want to do is connect, and it's going to take us through the Microsoft flow. Now, I've already done this, so I won't do it again, but after you do this for the first time, it's going to show you some permissions that you need to accept. And you may have to go into Entra and grant admin rights for the Contactzilla app in order for that to work. Once you've actually done that, it's going to give you a connection in there, and you need to come back to Team Settings, OIDC. And this time you need to make sure that you pick the Microsoft Client Credentials default connector. Click into here, click Get New Access Token, and make sure that you put the tenant ID of your Entra instance into here and click Get Access Token. You can see I've already got one. So with that ready to go, come across to Export within the address book that you actually want to export and click into Microsoft 365. Click New Export, and it's going to lead you through the setup process of this. Now, in order for this to work, we've got 2 things. We've got the address book that we're actually looking to export the contacts from, and in this instance there's 5 contacts. But if I just switch across to another address book within this team, I have this Entra users address book. Now you can bring these contacts in from the Microsoft Entra import, or you can manually add them. It's up to you. But the critical thing is that there's a Microsoft ID for the contact. Now this is the actual ID within 365 for this particular contact. And if I click here, this is the ID for this particular contact. And we're going to use this address book as the source for who we want to export to. So in this instance, we're going to export contacts to Nick, and we're also going to export contacts to myself. So with that in mind, we're going to go back to the export settings. You can see here the OIDC connector that we set up previously. We're going to leave this as the default connector, and we're going to select the client credentials token here. We then want to pick that Entra address book, Entra users, and then select the field that we're going to use with the Microsoft ID, which is MSID, and it's going to give me a preview of the users that it will export to. Now, if you have lots of users here, this list is only going to show some of them, but it gives you an idea that you actually selected the right address book and the right fields. Moving on to this schedule, we suggest that you begin with manual. You can always come into the settings and change that, but manual will allow you to trigger this yourself. Once you're happy it's working, you can set this to every 8 hours, and it's only going to take changes that happen. So sometimes it's going to run and it's not going to do anything. Export on save, leave this ticked, it's just going to run it as soon as we've done it. Label settings, no label selected. If we had a large address book and we only wanted to say export as subset of contacts, we can label those contacts within the address book, and then we can specify the label here that we actually want to export. So we could, for example, just export contractors, for example. I'll clear this for the time being, because we're just going to export the entire address book. Now, the replace changes setting, this determines what happens when a user changes the contacts in their Outlook. So if you leave this as skip, if the user changes the contact in Outlook, then when there's subsequent updates to the address book in Contactzilla, it's not going to push those changes to Outlook. With replace, what it's going to do is it's going to completely replace the version of the contact in Outlook with the version that's in Contactzilla. And typically for an organization that's trying to maintain a global address list or GAL, this is probably what you're going to want. Moving on, we have target category. Now we suggest that you put all contacts into a specific contacts folder. There's some slight confusion in Microsoft about what this actually is. They sort of refer to it inconsistently as categories or folders or labels. But essentially what it's doing is it's creating a separate contact folder on the Microsoft side. And we recommend you do this as it's highly likely that most companies will have contacts in the default folder. So let's just go ahead here and put in Contactzilla and export. You can call this whatever you want. It could be company gal or anything such as that. Export Contactzilla labels as Microsoft categories. So with this ticked, any labels that are against the contact, it's going to create those labels within Outlook, and you're going to see the same corresponding labels. We'll leave this the same so you can see. Data filtering, we can choose to just exclude particular fields and not push them to Outlook. That's fairly self-explanatory. And we can skip empty contacts, for example, anyone that doesn't have a phone number we might not want to push, or someone that doesn't have an email. This next setting, wipe contacts before export. What's going to happen with this is it's going to delete all the contacts from the Outlook side before it actually runs the export. Now, if you haven't provided a category name and it's using the default folder, then this is very difficult potentially. You need to ensure that you understand what this is doing, because potentially it's going to remove all of the default contacts that are in the staff members root folder. Now, that could be many years worth of contacts, so it's safe to tick this box as long as you have put in a specific category here. But we recommend using this with extreme caution, as it can delete existing contact information. That might potentially be what you want, but just be very aware that that's what's going to happen. So with that all set up, what we can now do is click Create Export, and it's going to immediately run. But before it does that, I'm just going to show you Outlook within the web interface. So here's my Outlook, and as you can see, I don't have any contacts at the moment, and I don't have any categories. Now, interestingly, Outlook on desktop behaves very similar, but you will find when you export to Outlook that contacts can sometimes appear in one before the other, and if there's deletions, they might hang around for a while. And this is really just to do with Microsoft's infrastructure and the number of servers that they run and the caching mechanisms, etc. So after a while, generally speaking, they will become synchronized. So now that we've seen that that's empty, we're going to click Create Export. And as you can see in the top right-hand corner, it's immediately running. And under the export runs, it's created 2 export runs, and it's pulled those users from the address book that we selected as the source address book. It's now done the run, and you can see completed, and it's actually processed 5. And if I come across to the right and click details, you can see it's created 5 contacts. It will show you here whether it's updating, deleting, and whether there's any errors. You can also click into the run number here, and it's going to show you specifically the graph calls that it's calling with the API. And if there's any errors here, you'll see those errors. So due to the Microsoft rate limiting, it will operate in batches of 5 users at a time. So if you were to export to 100 users, it's going to do 5 at a time. The other thing is, if you have users which are disabled in Entra, it may find those users and detect errors with them. And if that occurs, it might add them to this ignored mailboxes list, which just shows you any users within Entra that it can't actually export to. We can also come across to export status, And we can run a reconciliation report just to check that the user accounts are actually matching what we expect. So if we click Run Report here, it's going to run a report against Microsoft, and it's going to show us that it's expecting 5 contacts, it's tracking 5 contacts, it's actually got 5 contacts on the Microsoft side, and there's actually a total of 5 contacts. Now, if we had done this to the default root folder, this total count might actually have been different, because if the user had 100 contacts in there already and you pushed out these 5 contacts, this total count's going to read 105. It's going to be tracking 5 of them and so on. And it is actually going to show that as an error because we don't know how many contacts are meant to be on the Microsoft side. You can do various things here, such as deleting tracked. We can also come up into the top right, and we can actually delete the tracked contacts for all of them. And we can also clear the export run history. Moving across to that, we can obviously see the debugging for all of the runs as well. And this is just the same tab that's available for clicking the individual one, just with a specific run ID. So with that in mind, let's go across to Outlook. You can now see that it's pushed those contacts across. It will also push the avatars as well if you actually have avatars on the contacts. And you can see down the left-hand side, it's pushed out the main category that we created, or actually this is the folder, but Microsoft bring this in as a category, as they call it. But you can see here as well, it's also actually pushed out the individual labels. And if I come to your contacts, it's going to show me a view of that brings in all of these contacts, because that's essentially how the default folder works. It's an amalgamation of all the contacts that exist. Now, this is just mine, but Nick's going to have exactly the same if he was to log into his contacts. So just going back to Contactzilla for a second, if we come into contacts, we can say delete a contact from Contactzilla and come across to export again. We'll do another run just by clicking the dots here and click run now. It's going to start off another run. We're going to see that it's running for each of those users again. And you can see we've processed 1 record and it's done 1 deletion. Now, this is one of those situations where the contact is possibly going to stay there for a minute or two until Microsoft decides that they're going to flush it out. But if I refresh, there you go, you can see it's actually been deleted. Exactly the same with updates. So, sorry, that's the wrong address book. If I come across to contacts and we just say, for example, put a phone number against Nick. And save that. And come across to export. And run the export again. It's going to run for each of those contacts again. You can see it's process 1. And if we click details, it should say 1 updated. And if we refresh this, again, hopefully if Microsoft have caught it, you can see it now has the contact information for Nick for 555. If we come into this contact, and we actually say, for example, delete this phone number, and I don't know, maybe let's give it another email address. Because we clicked replace within Contactzilla, if we look at this, we've just got 2 email addresses now and no phone number. If we come in and we process another run for this export, it's done the 2 runs. You can see Nick, nothing's changed because we weren't amending Nick's contacts. But for myself, it's done 1 change. And if we click, it's actually updated 1 contact. And if we come back in and refresh, we're going to see that Nick's contact card has gone back to the server representation. So that's how the skip and replace